night was quiet. A heavy fog had settled over the fields, and I remember thinking how strange it felt. Eric and I were on the porch with our coffee, like always, when I saw the look on his face. He was uneasy. He wanted me to go inside, but I thought he was just overreacting. Then I froze. I heard it. "Do you hear that?" "What is that?" I asked him. I grabbed the big spotlight we kept on the porch and swept it across the yard. That's when I saw them. At first, three shapes out in the field, huge, hunched on all fours, staring at us with eyes that glowed in the light. Then two more appeared at the edges, 5 of them in total. Eric's voice was sharp. "I don't know what those are. We need to go inside now." Before I could even process what I was looking at, they charged. They moved with impossible speed, crossing the field to the house in seconds. I dropped the spotlight, my hands shaking. Eric shoved me through the door, slammed it shut, and locked it. We rushed around the house, locking every door and window, yanking the drapes closed. My heart was hammering. When we found our 2 beagles, Jasper and Briggs, curled up in the laundry room, shaking and whining, I knew this just wasn't in our heads. Even they were terrified. Eric kept saying he had to try something. He wanted to get to the truck and bring it up to the porch so we could escape. I begged him not to, but he went anyway. I stood at the window clutching the curtain, watching him walk across the yard. The motion light snapped on. He dropped his keys. And then I saw it, one of those things standing on its hind legs, towering, staring straight at him. The others began charging all at once. I panicked and swung the spotlight back on them. The beam caught one as it reached the fence. It flinched, shrieking like the light burned it, then bolted into the woods. When he stumbled back inside, I couldn't even speak. I was too angry and too scared. We called the police and I told them, "There's something trying to get into our house. They're huge. It's not a bear, not a wolf. We've never seen anything like this." They didn't believe us. They told us to lock our doors and wait it out. That's when I realized no one was coming. We grabbed whatever we could, an axe, knives, the fireplace poker, and ran upstairs. We got our daughter Chelsea and the dogs into the back bedroom and barricaded the door. We just had to hold on until daylight. Then came the sounds. Their claws on the porch boards, clicking and clacking, low growls that made my skin crawl. The house shook with their weight as they climbed onto the roof. They scratched at the walls. They barked and howled at each other like they were talking. We sat in silence, barely breathing, clinging to each other until the first light of morning. When our son Sean arrived, we went outside the yard and saw the truth. Massive tracks in the dirt, deep scratches across the front door, and coarse, thick hair caught on the fence where one of them looked like it tried to climb over after our son. I will never forget what I saw that night. I will never forget what I heard. They were real. My family's ranch was outside Durango, a dry, scrubby part of Mexico. It was my grandfather's land, and around 1995 or 96, we started having a problem. Our sheep and goats began to disappear. Not just one or two, but over time we lost many. The strange thing was there was never any blood, no tracks, no sign of a struggle. It was as if they just vanished into thin air. We started standing guard at night. One of the hired men was out with his rifle when he saw it first, a huge black shape that swooped down out of the sky. He shot at it. He was sure he hit it, but it just seemed to piss this thing off, and it flew off. A few days later, my uncle saw it. He's a tough man, not easily scared, and he saw it in broad daylight. He told me it stood up on 2 legs like a man, but it was 9 feet tall. It had a wolf's head, bat wings folded against its back, and legs that bent the wrong way, like an animal's. It looked right at him, and when its wings opened, the sound was loud and heavy. It flew off before he could even get his rifle out. That's when a man named Gabriel came to us. He was recommended by someone, and he said he could kill the creature. He claimed you needed a pure metal arrow, made out of copper, silver, or gold, shot directly into its heart. We thought he was a crazy con man. To prove it, he took my grandfather and great uncle to his truck and pulled back a tarp. I'll never forget what my grandfather described. Lying there was a dead creature, a smaller version of what was terrorizing us. It had the same wolf head and terrifying claws, but it wasn't right. It was stiff, and when there should have been blood, there were only a hard, black tar-like substance soaked into the truck bed. It smelled disgusting, like sulfur, skunk, and death mixed together. The eyes were bulging out. He said it was the most unnatural thing he'd ever seen. They took pictures with the disposable camera Gabriel gave them, but my great-uncle still refused to believe it. He thought it was an elaborate trick. He refused to pay him. The creature kept coming. It got braver, even tearing at the roof of a building. Finally, after it took another goat, my grandfather had enough. He and a neighbor who were also losing livestock pooled their money and hired Gabriel. A couple of nights later, Gabriel said it was done. He took them out to the field and showed them. The head. Just the head. The body was gone. But the attack stopped. The creature never came back. My grandfather kept the head on a table in the barn for a long time. It was just a wolf's head, but larger with a longer neck. The inside was just a solid mass of that same black stuff. No spine, no brain, nothing. Later we heard stories that this Gabriel had been doing this for a long, long time. That the same man had been seen with a dead creature like this as far back as 1936. It made us wonder, did he actually kill the thing that was hunting us? Or was he the one who sent it? The mission was supposed to be simple. In and out, 20 of us. Mexico's finest sent into the Sierras of Guanajuato to find and burn cartel marijuana plantations. We were warriors, trained for combat against men, not whatever those things were. The first night, we heard the screams. We made camp in a high clearing, and as the sun vanished, the forest came alive with a blood-curdling scream. It was like nothing I'd ever heard. A wretched, agonizing wail like a man being skinned alive. Some of the guys tightened their grips on their rifles, their faces set. They thought it was a cartel victim. Folk we were supposed to save. It lit a fire under them. But me? I've heard men scream. In pain, in fear, in death. This was different. There was a guttural, raspy quality to it. A resonance that felt wrong. It didn't sound human to me. We tried to pinpoint the source, but the sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Then as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The silence, somehow, was louder. None of us slept well that night. The next day was worse. The forest was dead. No birds, no insects, not even a breeze. Just the oppressive, heavy silence and the crunch of our boots on the dry earth. It felt like the jungle itself was holding its breath. That night, the screams came again. Closer this time. Much closer. We doubled the watch, our nerves stretched. Every shadow seemed to move after us. We were expecting a cartel ambush. The screams stopped before dawn, same as the night before. On the third day, we found the plantation. We torched the crops, dismantled the irrigation, did our job. A straightforward success. We took a different route back to the extraction point to avoid any reprisal. And as dusk began to fall, we found a cave. It actually seemed like a gift, like a pure luck, solid rock walls, protection on both sides. We set up camp inside the mouth, feeling a sense of relief. The mission was a success. It was over. That feeling, it didn't last. At 0300 we heard those screams again, but this time they were inside the cave with us. It was deafening, coming from deeper within the dark cave. We were all awake in an instant, rifles up, scanning the dark. Our position was compromised. But by what? The lieutenant made the call. Half of us would stay to secure the camp, and my squad would move in to investigate. Our weapons were hot, flashlights cutting shaky beams through the gloom. We advanced. The cave narrowed, the air growing damp and cold. All we could hear was our own breathing and the scuff of our boots on stone. Then my light hit something. Not a rock. Something shiny. It looked green and scaly. I shifted the beam and my heart stopped. It was a face. A lizard's face, but on a body the size of a man. Clawed hands, powerful legs coiled to spring, and it wasn't alone. There were more of them, moving with an impossible, skittering agility over the rocks, shielding their eyes from our lights. We were frozen, a complete and total tactical failure. We had no drill for this. One of those lizard creatures opened its mouth and unleashed that scream right in our faces. "Run!" someone yelled. We turned and fled back toward the cave mouth, stumbling in the dark. I glanced back and I saw them gaining on us. They were insanely fast. One of us opened fire, then we all did as we were retreating. The shots of a rifle was deafening in the confined space. I saw our rounds hit those creatures, but they sparked and ricocheted off their hides like we were shooting stone. The bullets did nothing, no penetration. A scream behind me, a human one, cut short. I'm not proud, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. I just ran, bursting out of the cave mouth into the night air, yelling for a perimeter. The men at the camp were already up and out, faces pale. We were shouting, calling for evac, for air support, anything, trying to explain the impossible between the ragged breaths. Then we heard it, that distinct helicopter sound at the distance. Relief washed over me for a single second before it curdled into confusion. It was a Black Hawk. No markings. It wasn't one of ours. 4 figures fast roped down. They wore sleek black armor and helmets with polarized visors that hid their face completely. Their voices when they spoke were mechanized. They were filtered, unnatural. They told us to stand down, to let them handle it. They moved into the cave. There were a few short, controlled bursts of gunfire, a different sound than our frantic shooting, and then the familiar, inhuman screams which were suddenly silenced. They emerged moments later. 2 of them were dragging the corpses of 2 reptilian creatures. The other 2 walked straight to our lieutenant. The one who spoke knew his name. In fact, they knew all of our names. He said they operated under the authority of the Mexican government and that we were never under any circumstances to speak of what happened that night. The threat was unspoken but crystal clear. We would all be found dead. Suicides, if we uttered a single word. They loaded the bodies onto their Black Hawk helicopter and vanished into the night. We were left there, surrounded by the quiet forest, trying to process what we just experienced. I resigned as soon as we got back. So did many others. Some guys stayed in, but they got transferred to desk jobs far from the field. Those of us who got out, we kept our heads down. We worked private security. I never talked about it, at least not until now. I work on radio towers, not the ones you see off the highway, remote towers, way out in the middle of nowhere. Whenever I'm on those jobs, I usually get permission to hunt on the land. On this trip, I brought my thermoscope and my rifle. I pulled into the site, parked near the tower, and climbed about 20 feet up with my saddle. From up there, I had a good vantage point. I wanted to be in place well before illegal shooting light, so I settled in with a thermal and started scanning. After a while, I picked up movement. 2 deer. One of them limped, the other was fine. It was too early to shoot, so I just watched. They got closer, and then they suddenly froze, alert, staring off into the tree line. That's when I saw it. Through the thermal, there was a faint glow. At first, I thought maybe a man, someone out there where no one should have been. But then I realized this wasn't right. It was pale, bony, crawling on all 4s, its arms too long, its movements too animalistic. The deer bolted, but that thing was faster. It ran after them on all 4s. It cut them off, and like a predator, it signaled out the limping one. That poor deer slammed into the 8-foot chain link fence at full speed and went backwards, crashing. Then this thing ran right toward the fallen deer. I unintentionally whispered, "What the fuck?" The thing froze. It heard my whisper from that distance. Slowly, it lifted its head, and then it looked right up at me. My stomach dropped. Its face was gaunt, sunken, pale as bone. Its eyes locked on me, and then it opened its mouth. "What the—" it croaked. I froze in horror. Then again, a little clearer this time. "What the f—" Each time it repeated it, the voice sharpened closer to mine until finally, "What the fuck," in my own voice like an echo. Then it leapt over the 8-foot fence like it was nothing, heading for me. I didn't think. I raised my rifle. Bam! 1 shot to the chest. It dropped. I fired again, this time at its head. For a moment, I thought it was over. I looked down, body motionless. I started unhooking my safety lines to get down, but when I looked again, it was gone. Then came the thumping, movement by my truck. Through the thermal I saw it, upright now, limping, dragging itself along the side of my truck like it needed the support. I racked another round, braced against the tower, and fired. I saw the impact, but when I swung to line up again, it wasn't there. Its heat signature popped back up, beyond the fence, then deeper in the tree line. It had slipped away. When I finally climbed down, I found the blood at the base of the tower. The trail showed it had walked right up beneath me, stood there looking up, before staggering off towards the woods. That was the last time I ever hunted. I've got a story that happened about a year ago in East Texas, and to this day it gives me chills every time I think about it. I've always loved hog hunting, and me and a couple of buddies had a private lease on some thick piney woods out there. I've been saving up and finally treated myself to a good thermal scope for my AR-10. Not some cheap one either. I'm talking a real high-end scope, 5 or 6 grand. I was excited to break it in. That night I went out by myself. I set up in the woods, found a big tree, and sat with my back against it, glassing the area with my new thermal. An hour and a half passed and nothing. Not a hog in sight. So I figured I'd move. Sometimes just 100 yards makes all the difference. I picked up and walked about 150 yards deeper, then set up again with my back to another tree, this time looking in the opposite direction. I wasn't there long when I saw movement through the thermal. Right away I thought, finally, pigs are coming in. I should have known better. That heat signature didn't look quite right. At first I thought it was a bear, though bears aren't really common in that part of Texas. But the longer I watched, the less it looked like a bear, and the more it looked human. A naked human, crawling on all fours. My stomach dropped. I stayed as still as I could, watching through the scope, and this thing, whatever it was, crawled straight to the very tree I had just been sitting at. It pressed its face right up against the bark, sniffing or examining the spot like it was transfixed on my scent. Then it squatted down. I'll never forget the way it moved, unnatural, jerky, but deliberate. It sat back on its haunches, hands between its legs, and turned its head directly towards me. Through the scope, all I could see was that glowing white heat signature, but I knew. That thing was staring at me. And then it opened its mouth. It tilted its head back like a wolf about to howl, but what came out wasn't a howl. In a woman's voice, clear as day, it said, "Help! I need help!" Every hair in my body stood on end. A few seconds later, it said it again. "I'm injured. I need help. Is there someone who can help me?" That was it for me. I clicked my AR off safe, lifted the barrel, and fired a warning shot over its head. If it was human, I didn't want to kill it, but I wanted it gone. It didn't even flinch, not even a bit. Then suddenly it broke to the left and started running on all fours, darting through the brush. I tried to track it through the scope, but kept losing it between the trees. I fired another round just to scare it off. But it wasn't heading towards my truck. It was heading the opposite direction. That was all I needed to know. I bolted, and I don't think I've ever run faster in my life. I made it to my truck, slammed the door, and peeled out of there. It was the fall of 2010, around 4:30 in the morning. My partner and I were driving our ambulance through a quiet, wooded stretch of Connecticut. We had just been canceled from a call and were heading back when my partner slowed the truck and asked me, "Do you see that?" I looked to where he was pointing. At first I thought it was just a huge stray dog. It was massive, silver gray, walking slow ahead of us down Pumpkin Hill Road. But as we got closer, alarm bells were ringing inside me. My gut was saying something was very wrong. Right before my eyes, that dog stood up on 2 legs. My skin went cold and my heart was pounding. It didn't stand up like a bear all awkwardly trying to balance. It was very smooth and natural, like it was meant to stand that way. That dog creature was enormous, easily 7 to 8 feet tall, shoulders broader than a linebacker, glowing yellow-green eyes, a long muzzle, and fangs that protruded even with its mouth closed. You can see its large muscles rippled under its fur. It had long clawed hands that hung almost to its knees. It cocked its head to the side, staring back at us. I felt pure dread, like it was telling me, "I know you can see me. Now move on." Then in one effortless leap, it bounded over the guardrail and into the trees. My partner floored it. Neither of us said much beyond, "What the hell was that?" We were both shaken to the core. For nearly a decade afterward, my partner refused to talk about it. But when he finally opened up, what he told me chilled me worse than the original sighting. While I was focused on the creature in front of us, he had been watching the ambulance's side and rear cameras. There were others. Two tan-colored dogmen are flanking us from behind, crouched in our blind spot, and another massive black one had crept up to the side of the ambulance, trying the handle on the patient compartment door. My partner swore he caught it grinning at him in the mirror before it bolted after the first one. They were hunting us as a pack, trying to ambush us. One distracted us while the others closed in. The way they move, the way they work together, they're intelligent, deliberate, and terrifying. I never looked at the woods the same way since that night, and to this day I believe we crossed paths with something far worse than any wolf or bear. We met a team of dogmen on Pumpkin Hill Road, and I thank God we were in an ambulance and not a small car, or I might not be able to tell the story today. December of '81. Cold, crisp air, perfect for deer hunting. I'd been 100 times on that old logging road near my home in Louisiana. My routine was always the same. Drive the truck about halfway down the road, then walk the last 3/4 of a mile to my stand. Driving the whole way in would spook everything for miles. I got to my stand about 3 in the afternoon, settled in, my breath misting the cold. I hadn't been there more than 30 minutes when a young doe came crashing through the undergrowth. She didn't just stop, she practically collapsed right in front of my stand, sides heaving, tongue lopping. She was dead on her feet, exhausted. My first thought was, a big buck must be chasing her. My heart started thumping. This was it. Then I saw it. Movement out of the corner of my eye. Something big dropped out of a tree about 60 feet away. I turned my head slowly, not wanting to spook whatever it was, and I froze. It looked like a gorilla. My mind started racing, trying to make sense of it. An escaped gorilla? From where? There's no zoo for 50 miles. A circus? Then I got angry. This must be some joker in a gorilla suit. Some anti-hunting nut came to ruin my day. I couldn't help myself. I stood up in the stand and yelled, "All right, joke's over. Take the fucking mask off. I got a license to be here, now get the hell out." It just stood there, stock still, on 2 legs staring right at me. That's when the first little trickle of ice-cold fear went down my spine. If it was a person, they'd have laughed or yelled back or something. This thing just watched. I raised my rifle. I wasn't going to shoot, not at what I still thought might be a person. I just wanted to look through the scope, get a closer view, maybe see the zipper on the costume. When the crosshair settled on it, my blood ran colder than the December air. Steam was puffing from its nostrils. Its chest was rising and falling like it had been running. I could see the texture of its hair, dark and coarse. And its face, it wasn't like a gorilla's face. It had a flat, human-like teeth, eyelashes. The structure was almost human. A crazy thought hit me. Is this a person? A feral person who's lived out here its whole life? That's when it roared. It wasn't a human sound. It wasn't even an animal sound I recognized. It was a deep guttural like a lion, but with the force behind it that felt like it hit me in the chest. It was a roar of pure anger, and I knew right then it was angry at me for pointing my rifle. Before I could even lower my gun, another sound cut through the trees. A whistle, sharp, piercing, coming from maybe 100 yards deeper in the woods. The creature in front of me stopped its growling instantly. It turned its head toward the whistle and let out an answer whistle just as sharp. The hair on my arms and neck stood straight up. They were communicating about me. As I was processing that nightmare, a second creature walked out of the tree line. Just walked on 2 legs, calm as you please, and stood right next to the first one. Now there were two of them, both staring a hole through me. That's when a survival instinct took over. Every fiber in my body screamed, run. I didn't even think. I just leaped from the stand, hit the ground, and started sprinting for my life toward the logging road and my truck. I dared to glance over my shoulder. One of them was running parallel to me through the trees. It wasn't even trying to catch me. It was just keeping pace effortlessly. It was like it was herding me, funneling me toward the road. I looked ahead and I could see the other one now, back on the road itself, following me. I'd never been so terrified. I fumbled with the truck door, scrambled inside, and slammed it and locked it. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I looked out the window, and there they were, both of them standing at the edge of the trees just watching me. Not charging, not threatening, just making sure I left. I peeled out of there, my tires spitting gravel. The whole drive home I was shaking. I wasn't just scared of what they were. I was scared of what they did. They were smart, coordinated. They didn't want to hurt me. They wanted me gone. And I knew deep down I was the one who started it. I was the aggressor when I raised that rifle. I had provoked something out there that still don't have a name for. And I'll never go back to that spot again. Alright, so picture this, man. It's 4 in the freaking morning. Colder than a witch's, well, you know. We just finished this killer gig up in Woodstock, and now the whole band's crammed into this beat-up van trying to make it back to the city. Me, Jimi Hendrix, yeah, that Jimmy, and a couple of other guys. We were wiped, just completely spent, you know. All we wanted was to crash. But man, outside, totally white out. The worst blizzard I've ever seen. Snow coming down sideways, wind screaming like it's alive. Could barely see past the windshield. We're crawling along, everyone dead quiet, just watching the road, or where the road should have been. Then thump, just like that, we slide right into this huge snowbank. The engine gives a sad little cough and dies. We're stuck. I mean, really stuck. The driver's flooring it, but the tire's just spinning, digging us in deeper. It's useless, and it's getting cold fast. Even with the heater cranked all the way, you could feel that deep freeze setting in. We were just zonking out right there. Then out of nowhere, this crazy light cuts through the snow. Not like headlights. This was different. A glow, man, got brighter and brighter, lighting up the whole road, woke us right up. We look and we can't believe it. This thing is coming down out of the storm like a big silent glowing cone, just setting down right on the road in front of us. We're all staring, mouths hanging open, then a panel on the side slides open without a sound. This tall, thin figure glides out. Doesn't walk, just floats. And as it moves, the snow underneath it just melts away. In seconds, it's right outside our van, right by Jimmy's window, and is looking right at him. Jimmy didn't even flinch. He just stared back, locked in. He had this look in his face like he was listening to some far-out music the rest of us couldn't hear. I swear they were talking without saying a word. And while this is happening, the inside of the van's getting warmer. I mean really warm. We actually turned the heater off. Then the van lurches. The snowbank that had us trapped had completely melted away. We were free. Just like that, the thing turns, glides back to its ship, the door closes, and it zips up into the sky and vanishes into the storm. We sat there for a solid minute, nobody saying a word. The driver, his hands shaking, turned the key. The engine fired right up, and we just drove off like nothing happened. Nobody said a word the whole way home. It was like we all agreed without saying it, we don't talk about this. Ever. I brought up with Jimmy years later just once. He never talked about it. Just gave me this look that said, yeah, I know, but we don't talk about it. So we never did. Our little secret. Wild, right? It was November 1978. My girlfriend, she's my wife now, and I were parked in this local park, just like we always did back in high school. It was a cold night, the cars running, heat on, and music playing. Out of nowhere, a herd of deer came tearing past us, running like something was chasing them. Then bam! Something hit the back of the car, very hard. I thought it was my buddies messing with us again, like they've done the week before, so I grabbed my dad's big police flashlight and jumped out ready to chase him into the woods. That's when I saw it, standing right behind the trunk. This thing was, God, I'll never forget it. It was like 9 to 10 feet tall. I'm 6'3", and it made me look small. It was jet black like a wolf, but built like a nightmare. Its head was huge, its eyes were red and glowing, and then its mouth was open, saliva dripping off these massive teeth, and it was growling this deep chest rumbling sound like a bass guitar shaking my ribs. The arms were thick, muscular like a weightlifter's, and the way it moved, it didn't walk, it just slid towards me like it wasn't even stepping. Then I saw another pair of red eyes behind it. This thing wasn't alone. My girlfriend started screaming inside this car, and I broke out of my trance, and I don't even know how, but I got back in 1 second, and I'm staring at this thing. The next, I'm slamming the door, peeling out of the car. We hear another thud as we sped off. Next morning, there was a dent in the rear panel that wasn't there before. We didn't tell anyone for years. Who'd believe us? But that thing, it wasn't natural. It felt evil, like it wanted to hurt me. Even now, talking about it makes my hand shake and changed me forever. It was late 1999, winter in Nobia, when things started. The first real hit was in the fall. My brother Mike and I had 5 deer hanging in the shed. The next morning, they were gone. All of them. No tire tracks, no signs of anyone dragging them away. It was like they just vanished. A couple of weeks later, all 30 of our chickens were gone too. Not killed, not scattered, just gone. We put up floodlights figuring we were dealing with some poachers. But then came the pounding. It was past midnight when I heard it. Bam, bam, bam on the front door like someone trying to break it in. I grabbed the rifle, flung the door open. Nothing. Every night after, the pounding came back. The walls shook and the windows rattled. One night my little niece screamed bloody murder. She said a giant, hairy face was staring in through her bedroom window. Her mom swore she saw it too. Something huge with eyes that seemed too far apart, watching. That's when my brother Mike and I decided to send the woman and kids into town. The worst night came in January 2000. I saw something move by the window. I ran out with my rifle, saw it bolt for the tree line, and fired. 3 solid hits. It went down. Big mistake. 5, maybe 6 more of them exploded out the trees, furious, screaming and charging, hurling rocks the size of softballs at me. Mike and I opened fire. While we were shooting at the ones in the front, 2 in the back grabbed the one I'd shot and dragged it back into the woods. That's when I realized these aren't just ordinary animals. They were working together strategically. That night, they came back for revenge. Hours of pounding, glass breaking, massive rocks smashing through the house, and we were returning fire from window to window, trying to keep them back. It was a fight. Just before dawn, they retreated back into the woods. We survived the night. After that, we barely slept. Every night, something tried to draw us out. A huge gorilla-like thing would step into the yard, just standing there, watching, exposed, clear shot, easy target, easy bait. This sent shivers down Mike's and I's neck. We stopped taking chances. By the end of January, we brought in so-called researchers, but they didn't last long. Too much for them. And when some men claiming to be government agents started asking questions and tampering with our phones, that was it. We decided enough is enough and just left. I haven't been back since. It was November of '99, just after dawn. My buddy Art and I were hunting whitetail on private land in South Georgia. Thick pines, swampy patches, and a big pond in the middle. We had set up near the tree line waiting for movement. After a while, the grass about 50 yards ahead rustled. At first, I thought it was deer, but then this thing stood up. It was 6.5 feet tall, maybe taller, with a head like an alligator's, but a shorter snout and somewhat flat face, but somehow wrong. It had thick arms, long claws, and a thick tail dragging behind it. My buddy Art whispered, "What the hell is that?" I didn't have an answer. My finger hovered near the trigger, but something told me not to shoot it. Then something moved to the right. Another creature stepped out of the tree line. Upright, wolf-like, 7 feet tall, thick with muscle and matted fur. We didn't know what it was back in '99, but now I know. It was a dogman. The gator thing turned its head towards the dogman, then swiveled and locked its eyes back on us. It slowly walked back into the water and swam halfway across, still staring at us. Then it just stopped. It looked down at the water as if it had lost interest, and it started looking like it was searching for fish. The dogman then crept to the bank cautiously. It lowered itself on all fours and started drinking. Its ribs were heaving like it was very thirsty. Then, without warning, that gator thing slipped under the water. And then it reappeared just 12 feet from the unaware dogman. 1 second it was floating, and the next, bam, it surged forward, water churning as it lunged. The dogman scrambled back, but it wasn't fast enough. That gator thing grabbed a hold of its legs and yanked it into the pond. The dogman snapped down on the gator thing's shoulder, thrashing like a pit bull. The gator thing roared and slashed with its claws. Blood splattered all over the water. The dogman then twisted, got its hind legs under the gator thing's belly, and kicked. The gator thing staggered, but it did not let go. They rolled and thrashed until the gator thing all of a sudden dragged the dogman under the water. My buddy Art whispered, "It's trying to drown it." But then an explosion of water. Somehow the dogman burst up out of the water, gasping. It clamped both of its hands around the gator thing's jaws and wrenched them sideways. We heard a loud crack echo across the pond. The gator thing went limp. The dogman flung it aside, chest heaving, one arm hanging useless. It sat on the bank, exhausted, staring at the gator thing's corpse, and then at us. Art raised his rifle. I shoved the barrel down. No. After that, it's earned its life. We backed away slowly. Last I saw, the dogman was still there, panting in the mud, watching us leave. I don't know what the hell those things were, or why the gator thing attacked the dogman. You want to know why my hand's shaking so bad I can barely hold this whiskey? It ain't the drink. I'll tell you that much. I wish it was. A man could cure that. We promised each other, see, all 5 of us, swearing on our lives we wouldn't breathe a word of what happened up near the mountain. We stumbled out of those woods near Mount St. Helens looking like we'd fought a war, and I reckon we had. A war against something that ain't supposed to be. We'd had the best run of luck in 6 years of prospecting that spot. Gold just pouring into our pans. Then Fred's tooth started acting up, and that's what started it all. None of us wanted to leave the claim, so we talked him into one more night. One more night in that god-forsaken cabin. We saw the print first, right outside the door. Big, and I mean big, 19 inches long. We're mountain men. We know a bear track. This wasn't no bear. That's when one of the boys, he gets this pale look on his face and says earlier in the week he'd seen a smaller print and heard a whistling sound. Whistling from one side of him, then the other, like he was being circled. Fred pipes up, says he heard it too. We all got real quiet then. We decided to skip the fire, barricade ourselves in the cabin. It was a miserable little box, no windows, barely big enough for the 5 of us, but it was stout, or so we thought. Fred and Hank went to get water from the stream, rifles in hand. I was inside when I heard Hank fire. 3 quick shots, then a silence that was worse than the noise. They came barreling back in, white as ghosts, slamming the door shut, piling stuff against it. Said they saw it. Tall, hairy, standing on 2 legs, peeking around a tree up on the ridge. Hank shot at it, and instead of running away, it came charging down the mountain, whistling over his shoulder like it was calling for its friends. We sat in that pitch-black cabin for hours just listening. Then around midnight, all hell broke loose. Something smashed into the wall so hard a plank came loose and fell on Hank. There was a little silver light now, a crack to see out of. Hank looked and his eyes near bugged out of his head. 3 of them, he hissed, standing right there. They were holding boulders. One of them saw Hank looking. I wound up and threw a rock right at the crack. We grabbed the rifles, but by the time we got there, they were gone. But they weren't gone. We could hear him whistling, footsteps shuffling all around the cabin. They knew we couldn't see him on the other sides. Then they started on the door, slamming into it, trying to break it down. We all threw our weight against the barricade, and by some miracle, it held. When that didn't work, that's when the real terror started. A barrage of rocks for hours. It sounded like the whole mountain was being thrown at us. We just huddled up in the middle, waiting for the walls to splinter. It finally stopped. We were sitting there exhausted, thinking maybe it was over. Then I saw it. A hand, a huge, hairy, ape-like hand, sliding through the crack in the wall. It fumbled around and it grabbed the handle of the axe we kept inside. It started pulling it out. I didn't even think. I just lunged and grabbed the axe, twisting it so it wouldn't go through the gap. The thing on the other end was strong, so strong it started slamming the axe against the wall, trying to wrench it free. That's when Hank, God bless him, he shoved his rifle through the crack and fired. There was a loud screech and the hand let go. We heard a stampede of footsteps, then running off into the trees. Real footsteps this time, leaving. We didn't sleep. We waited for the sun. When it finally came, we opened that door. The ground was littered with rocks and boulders. The cabin was scarred and gouged all to hell. So yeah, I broke the promise. I came in here, ordered a bottle, and the words just fell out of me. I had to. A man seeing something like that, he can't keep it bottled up. It'll poison him from the inside out. You can believe me or not. Don't matter to me none. But if you're ever up near Mount St. Helens and you hear whistling in the trees, you run. You run like the devil himself is on your heels, because something is. December of '81. Cold, crisp air, perfect for deer hunting. I'd been 100 times on that old logging road near my home in Louisiana. My routine was always the same. Drive the truck about halfway down the road, then walk the last 3/4 of a mile to my stand. Driving the whole way in would spook everything for miles. I got to my stand about 3 in the afternoon, settled in, my breath misting the cold. I hadn't been there more than 30 minutes when a young doe came crashing through the undergrowth. She didn't just stop, she practically collapsed right in front of my stand, sides heaving, tongue lopping. She was dead on her feet, exhausted. My first thought was, a big buck must be chasing her. My heart started thumping. This was it. Then I saw it. Movement out of the corner of my eye. Something big dropped out of a tree about 60 feet away. I turned my head slowly, not wanting to spook whatever it was, and I froze. It looked like a gorilla. My mind started racing, trying to make sense of it. An escaped gorilla? From where? There's no zoo for 50 miles. A circus? Then I got angry. This must be some joker in a gorilla suit. Some anti-hunting nut came to ruin my day. I couldn't help myself. I stood up in the stand and yelled, "All right, joke's over. Take the fucking mask off. I got a license to be here, now get the hell out." It just stood there, stock still, on 2 legs staring right at me. That's when the first little trickle of ice-cold fear went down my spine. If it was a person, they'd have laughed or yelled back or something. This thing just watched. I raised my rifle. I wasn't going to shoot, not at what I still thought might be a person. I just wanted to look through the scope, get a closer view, maybe see the zipper on the costume. When the crosshair settled on it, my blood ran colder than the December air. Steam was puffing from its nostrils. Its chest was rising and falling like it had been running. I could see the texture of its hair, dark and coarse. And its face, it wasn't like a gorilla's face. It had a flat, human-like teeth, eyelashes. The structure was almost human. A crazy thought hit me. Is this a person? A feral person who's lived out here its whole life? That's when it roared. It wasn't a human sound. It wasn't even an animal sound I recognized. It was a deep guttural like a lion, but with the force behind it that felt like it hit me in the chest. It was a roar of pure anger, and I knew right then it was angry at me for pointing my rifle. Before I could even lower my gun, another sound cut through the trees. A whistle, sharp, piercing, coming from maybe 100 yards deeper in the woods. The creature in front of me stopped its growling instantly. It turned its head toward the whistle and let out an answer whistle just as sharp. The hair on my arms and neck stood straight up. They were communicating about me. As I was processing that nightmare, a second creature walked out of the tree line. Just walked on two legs, calm as you please, and stood right next to the first one. Now there were two of them, both staring a hole through me. That's when a survival instinct took over. Every fiber in my body screamed, "Run." I didn't even think. I just leaped from the stand, hit the ground, and started sprinting for my life toward the logging road and my truck. I dared to glance over my shoulder. One of them was running parallel to me through the trees. It wasn't even trying to catch me. It was just keeping pace effortlessly. It was like it was herding me, funneling me toward the road. I looked ahead and I could see the other one now, back on the road itself, following me. I'd never been so terrified. I fumbled with the truck door, scrambled inside, and slammed it and locked it. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I looked out the window, and there they were, both of them standing at the edge of the trees just watching me. Not charging, not threatening, just making sure I left. I peeled out of there, my tires spitting gravel. The whole drive home I was shaking. I wasn't just scared of what they were. I was scared of what they did. They were smart, coordinated. They didn't want to hurt me. They wanted me gone. And I knew deep down I was the one who started it. I was the aggressor when I raised that rifle. I had provoked something out there that still don't have a name for, and I'll never go back to that spot again. It was the day after Christmas 2016, and any sane person in Niles, Ohio was probably still curled up on their couch, surrounded by leftover ham and wrapping paper. Not me. I was stuffing a cooler with sandwiches and beer, loading my rods in the trunk of my car. I needed this. A full day with my family asking me repeatedly when I was going to get a real job instead of construction, the kids screaming, the constant overlapping noise. It left me feeling raw. The river was my church of peace. The Mahoning River isn't much to look at, but I knew a spot, real secluded near an old train trestle and a small dam. It was a hike to get there, but it was worth it. I parked my car on the gravel access road. The sun was already getting low. I had maybe 2 hours of light left. I grabbed my gear and started walking. By the time I got to my spot, my fingers were stiff and burning with the cold. I didn't care. I set up my chair, assembled my rod with fumbling hands, and cast my line into the slow, dark water. And just like that, the family drama, the job, stress, all of it just drained away into the river. The sun finally dipped below the trees and it got dark. I pulled out my headlamp and kept going. Then I felt it. The primal fear of being watched. I stopped reeling mid-cast and slowly turned my head. My headlamp illuminated the first few rows of trees. Nothing. I was about to write it off as nerves when I saw it. A shift of shadow behind a big sycamore tree about 15 yards away. I kept my light trained on the spot and the shape resolved. It wasn't a deer. It was too tall and it was standing straight up. The arms, they were too long, hanging down past his knees. Then it stepped out from behind the tree. The light from my headlamp hit it full on, and my heart just stopped. It was covered in stringy, thick, dark fur. Its legs were bent backwards at the knee like a dog's. Its face, a twisted mix of wolf and man, with a long snout packed with jagged teeth and bright yellow eyes. It was a fucking werewolf. It let out a low, rumbling growl that I felt vibrate in my chest, and it took one step toward me. That was all it took. I dropped my fishing rod and turned and ran. I crashed through the underbrush, blind with panic. I heard it coming after me. It wasn't just moving. It was plowing through the woods, snapping branches, its footsteps pounding the earth. It was fast and gaining on me, and I'm just running randomly through the woods, not knowing if this is the right way. This is it, I thought. I'm dead. This is how I die, right here in these woods by that werewolf. By some miracle, I don't know how, I found the trail. I just burst out of the tree line onto the wider path and poured every ounce of strength I had into running. And then I saw it, my car, parked right where I left it. I've never been so happy to see a beat-up old sedan in my entire life. I threw myself inside, turned it on, and drove off. I couldn't think straight, but I had no idea where I was going. But I had to put miles between me and that river. I've held on to this for years. Nobody ever believes the homeless guy sleeping in the bushes, but I don't care anymore. It's the truth. I was staying out near Georgetown back when it was all nothing, just fields, cows, and sky. I kept to myself, found a good spot off the beaten path where nobody hassled me. I had my pack, a little water, and the spear I made. Just a sharpened hunk of metal on a stick, but it did keep a coyote off me once. One night I just woke up with a few cows nearby. They were spooked. Not normal spooked, but real panicked. I peeked over and I saw them. Four things, bigger than any wolf, shouldered like a dang grizzly, and they were working together, cutting one cow out from the rest, taking it down fast. The sounds, man, the crunching, the tearing, they weren't just eating, it was like they were enjoying it. Then one of them just stood up on two legs. I ain't joking, it had to be at least 7 feet tall, just staring right at me with these eyes glowing red. My blood went cold. I ran for my life. I found a large oak tree and scrambled up it. The big one, a black monster, started toward me, and the others fanned out. I fumbled in my pocket and grabbed my great aunt's cross, only thing I owned worth anything. Started praying, God, please get me out of this. Next thing I know, one of them is climbing up the tree, claws like daggers digging into the bark. When it got close, it reached out for me. I yelled, in Jesus' name, and stabbed down. Hardly did a thing, just pissed it off. Then I saw two more starting up the other side. I was cornered, totally done for. I closed my eyes and said, sorry for every wrong I made. Just take me. But then a bright light, out of nowhere it came. No sound, just light. Then I heard it. Not one, but two large bulls. Big boys, just tearing out of the darkness, mad as hell. The first bull charged the one on the ground and just launched it in the air, sent it flying sky high. The other one went for the big climber, ramming into the tree so hard I felt it shake. It was chaos, a straight up brawl. Snarls, bellows, the whole pasture turned into a battlefield. Those things forgot all about me. They had a real fight on their hands. One of the bulls got his leg tore up pretty bad. These bulls knew what they were up against and weren't backing down. Something came over me. Adrenaline, maybe Jesus? I don't know, but I saw my chance. The big wolf creature was distracted, tangling with one of the bulls. I took aim and threw my spear with every bit of strength I had. Nailed it right in the back. It stumbled, roared, and took off, staggering across the road. The other three followed, and I swear, the big one looked like it was shrinking as it ran, like it wasn't a monster no more. When it was over, I just sat there, shaken, crying. I truly believe that Jesus sent these two bulls my way just in time. My name is Marisol Martinez. It was 1952 and I was a young woman visiting family from Elgin. The night after a big dance at the community center, I was wearing my favorite blue dress as I walked home with my date. It happened so fast. We cut through the alleys near where a strange old German man lived. Then something burst from between the houses. It was much taller than a man, covered in shaggy gray fur, and it moved fast. It got right to me, grabbed my dress, and tore the fabric trying to pull me towards it. The man with me didn't even try to help. He turned and ran, leaving me there all alone. I froze for a sec, then turned and ran. I ran barefoot, sprinting down the alley, holding my shoes. That creature ran after me. I heard it closing in, and I knew I wasn't going to make it. Then a miracle. From a nearby yard, two German shepherds started barking mad. They threw themselves against the fence, barking at this thing, and the creature's attention snapped away from me. It turned towards the dogs. That was my chance. I pushed forward, my bare feet slapping the hard ground. I didn't look back, but I heard the chaos. It busted the gate open, the two German shepherds fighting this thing, then furious barking turned into yelps of pain. These two dogs were buying me a chance to live with their own lives. I kept running until a searing pain shot through my foot. I stepped on something sharp, glass or jagged rock. I cried out and fell, tumbling into a muddy ditch. I couldn't stand up. Blinded by pain, I crawled, dragging myself and squeezing under a fence. Then silence. The barking stopped. The fighting was over. I held my breath and listened. Something moved through the mud of the ditch, slow, deliberate. It was sniffing, sniffing for me. I squeezed my eyes shut and started to pray. Then to my horror, it spoke towards my direction. A wet, grating sound like rocks grinding together, but the words were clear. In Spanish, it growled, I'm going to get you. It knew where I was hiding. I was helpless. A porch light came from the house behind me. An elderly couple stepped outside, and when they saw the creature, the old man shot at it. I screamed and crawled toward them, begging for help. They helped me inside and called their grandson. He came out with his own gun to look around the front yard. When he got closer to the portion of the fence I crawled under, we saw him pulled down by a gray furred arm that reached from under there. His grandfather ran up and looked over the fence aiming his gun. He saw the creature's face changing right before his eyes, from wolf-like to the face of a man. It let go of his grandson and took off naked down the alley, now more human-like. The next day we all knew who it was. It was the old German man who lived nearby. We went to the police, but they laughed. A bunch of Mexicans claiming a white man turned into a werewolf. Nothing ever came of our report. I know what I saw and what I heard. It was real. This happened back in 2015, northeast of Seattle. I was out in the woods doing a little foraging. After a while, I saw something up ahead on the trunk of a big cedar. At first, I thought it was a giant pale lizard. It was this whitish, almost translucent thing clinging to the bark. But the portions were all wrong. It had these stubby little limbs and a long tail. And its head? It turned its head all the way around to look at me without moving its body. It made this clicking, snapping sound with its mouth. I couldn't even tell where its teeth ended and its face began. It was just jagged. My blood went cold. I froze solid, and that's when I heard it. From deeper in the woods, this loud guttural whooping sound. It was getting closer. Fast. Something big was crashing through the brush, and this pale thing on the tree, it heard it too. Its head started twitching, trying to pinpoint the noise, and it started scrambling higher up the trunk. Then this massive blackish brown arm reached around the side of the tree and grabbed one of the pale thing's legs. I knew instantly that arm belonged to a Sasquatch. I'd seen one 12 years before. This Sasquatch was a giant male. It came roaring around the tree. It was 4 times the size of this white creature. The pale thing didn't run. It launched itself at the Sasquatch. It was fast, a blur of white crawling all over it, and it wasn't just biting and scratching. Wherever it touched the Sasquatch, this weird smoky vapor would puff up, and the Sasquatch would let out the shriek of pure pain. It was like its skin was burning it. I didn't see it spit anything, but it was definitely hurting it with some kind of, I don't know, venom or acid. The Sasquatch managed to get a grip on its head, and it just started pulling, trying to rip it off. The pale thing's body twisted in this impossible way, its head spinning around and its little legs sort of elongating. It reached up and sank its jagged mouth right into the Sasquatch's forearm, tearing at a chunk. The Sasquatch roared and just hammered it with a punch that would have killed a grizzly. The thing flew through the air and splattered against a smaller tree. I'm not kidding, it looked like a wet towel hitting a wall. It just flattened out for a second, absorbing the impact, then its form just popped back out. The head reappeared and scrambled up the tree in a heartbeat. The Sasquatch, its arms bleeding and messed up, was so enraged it didn't even care. It grabbed a small log and started smashing the tree, trying to knock it down. Finally, the pale thing flew out and just bolted into the undergrowth with the Sasquatch thundering right behind it. I just stood there, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. That pale thing, it wasn't just an animal, it was something else entirely. And the fact that the Sasquatch went after it with such hatred, it makes you wonder what the thing had done to deserve it. I didn't stick around to find out. I got out of those woods and I never went back to that spot. The summer of '92 was supposed to be my big last hurrah before my life as a family man. I was going to have one epic solo camping trip. I've been a woodsman my whole life, but I could feel that chapter closing. This particular park was just beautiful. Rolling hills, dense forest, and a dry riverbed that made for a perfect trail. The thrill of a new adventure hummed through me. That hum died a couple of hours in, replaced by a sudden twisting dread that came out of nowhere. Then I saw it. About 100 yards away, a massive black hairy wolf thing stood in the open field. My mind screamed bear, but I knew it wasn't. Its face was shadowed, but I could feel it glaring right at me. Its chest was broad, larger than a human's. I reached for my binoculars and a single clear thought blasted through my head. Don't do that. I lifted them anyways, and the creature wasn't there. I almost cried with relief, but a second later it was closer now, only 70 yards away. I could now see its amber eyes glowing deep. Then I heard its voice, not with my ears, but in my mind, cold, clear. If only you hadn't looked. A sick game of peekaboo followed. It would vanish and reappear, each time closer, each time more grotesque. Its mouth stretched into a wide, sinister grin, split by silvery strands of drool. It had no neck, just a head of pure muscle and a hulking body. It stepped out of the brush 20 feet away. I'm not ashamed to say that I started to cry. This was it for me. Its chest heaved, its breath quickened. It bent its knees, threw its arms back, and prepared to pounce. That's when a reddish-brown blur roared past me and slammed into the creature's chest. The impact was followed by a scream so primal it vibrated in my teeth. I saw them, two titans locked in a vicious primal battle, biting, clawing, tearing. The thing that saved me was a Sasquatch. Unfortunately, the dogman was winning. The Sasquatch was a little smaller. It looked young. The dogman leaped onto the Sasquatch's back. I knew if the dogman won, I was next. I scrambled for my pistol. I couldn't kill it, but maybe I could distract it. I took aim, finger on the trigger. I couldn't get a clear shot. The new earth-shaking roar tore through the trees much louder. A massive Sasquatch, even larger, crashed into the clearing. It charged into the dogman with a huge force and smashed the fuck out of it. The dogman's head snapped back and it went limp instantly. The larger Sasquatch let out a victorious bellow that shook my bones, then dragged the dogman's body away into the darkness. The younger one turned and started toward me. The last thing I remember was my confusion at how the ground was rushing up to my face. Next thing, I wake up leaning against my truck, my head pounding. The sun was down. Was it all a nightmare? A crazy dream? Relief washed over me. I stood up and that's when I saw it. There, perfectly imprinted in the dust on my hood, was a massive handprint. My blood turned to ice. It was real. All of it.